Hi, good afternoon. Hi, good afternoon. I'm Farmer Samson Obole. It's a pleasure to welcome you to this class. Now, we still continue our series on Portals 5. We said for those that are just joining, I would advise we try and go back to the previous lectures explaining how we can use this Portals 5 to create a structure for our company. So the first we looked at new entrants. So just for a diagram to explain. So you are the person doing the core business. You are at the middle, and as someone in the middle, you have inputs and you have outputs. So input, you have your suppliers. However, more people can join you in this space, so you can have more people, or what we refer to as new entrants. So in our discussion, we said the profitability of your business is dependent on, number one, how many new entrants are coming in. And we looked at the fact that as a business that understands this, your job is to try to create a barrier as much as you can to stop new people from coming in, because the fewer you are in the industry, most of the time the higher your profitability if the market is large. So your job is to try to create a barrier. But on the flip side, we say if you are the new entrant, your job is to find ways to circumvent the barrier. So this is the first part. The second part we talked about is the power of the supplier. We looked at different characteristics around the power that the supplier can wield. So it's not only the new entrants that can affect your business success or profitability, but the supplier also have the power to do that. And we said it is important you understand this so that you know how to set up your structure to take advantage, as opposed to be the one taking advantage of in the system. So the third people we're going to be looking at are the guys in this region, the market. So we call that the bargaining power of buyers. So we've looked at that of the supplier. So we have the bargaining power of buyers. The bargaining power of buyers. So as a business, you would agree with me that if you're somebody in business, there is a power that the buyer also have over the business. I mean, I'm sure we've all heard of this wonderful adage that the customer is always right. And if there is a school of thought that believes the customer is always right, it invariably means that there is a certain power dedicated or left for the customers to play with, which means that leaves the service provider or the product seller at the mercy of the buyer. So there are some basic characteristics that you would look at to know how much power am I giving to this buyer from me, how much power am I giving to these customers, how much power am I leaving on the table for the customer to pick up. Now, if we understand that, how vulnerable am I to these customers, so that you are able to ensure that you build a structure to protect yourself from the vulnerabilities that you are living, because some of the time these vulnerabilities are not things that you can block totally or that you can eliminate totally. So it means you need to know, do I have a structure that keeps me protected, or that ensures I am relevant despite the power I have left on the table? I don't know if that makes sense. So the first thing under this is, number one, to know how much power the buyer has is the buyer's volume. Buyer's volume. So buyer's volume is basically how much product is this buyer buying from me per time. So I'll give an example. We are still trying to get back there. I remember last year when we had about 4 tons of tomatoes weekly. We had a customer that picks up a ton, 2 tons at a go every week. Now, you would agree with me that the kind of power that that customer has over our business is not the same thing with the customer that comes to buy 5 kg, 100 kg, 10 kg every week. Because the man buying 2 tons is responsible for taking over 50% or about 50% of our output. The man taking 2 kg, 10 kg, 5 kg, yes, what they are taking is appreciated, but it is negligible compared to the man taking 2 tons. So it means essentially, if the man taking 2 tons makes a complaint about something somewhere in the process or something in the delivery or anything, the way we would respond unconsciously will be different from when a 5 kg person makes the same complaint. So it means that that buyer has a source of power, and that power can be used to mar the business if it is not properly kept in check. So imagine somebody that is taking about 2-3 tons, about 1 to 2 tons of the produce, suddenly wakes up and says, oh, I don't need tomatoes in the next 1 month. Now, how do we start disposing of that? But because I understand early that this buyer has access or has a sort of power because they are a large volume off taker, then there is a contract in place that says you have no option but to pick up. In case you pick up or you don't pick up, it doesn't matter. As long as we have left it allocated for you, you will still need to pay for it. So essentially, though they have a power, I have been able to quickly keep that power in check. I don't know if that makes sense. Another example is you might, and I'm using more of production because of that where I am. So another example is we have drivers that come to pick our goods. Now, we have a driver that can take up to 2 tons at a go. We have other drivers that the maximum they can carry is 500 kg. Now, when we have a customer that picks up 2 tons and, for example, the customer is saying you would be the one to supply, then it is not enough for me to produce. I must be able to put the person that would supply into a contractual basis so that they understand that this is not, I am tired today, I can't come kind of thing. So there is the buyer's power, and that buyer's power in this case is related to the volume. Then related to the volume based on your production capacity. So this is one. Then we also have buyers, the size of each buyer, each buyer's order, the size of, okay, I think I missed it. So this is size of each buyer's order. That's what I was trying to explain, since how much are they ordering. But buyer's volume is how many buyers do I have? Sorry, I missed that up. So size of each buyer's order is how much order is each buyer getting. Then buyer's volume is how many buyers, number of buyers I have. So take for instance, let me look for a crop that we do not have too many buyers that we have on the farm. Mustard green, for example. Mustard green. Let me compare that to lettuce and compare that to tomatoes. Now, the number of buyers that we have for tomatoes are so many that a customer cannot come, a buyer cannot do shakara anyhow except for the large volume buyer of 2 tons. Those ones that buy 100 kg, 200 kg, 50 kg, 500 kg, they are so many. Now, because they are so many, they cannot wield any power, because you know that whatever volume you are not able to pick up, there is somebody waiting in check on the line to pick it up easily. Now, when we compare that to mustard green is a vegetable, we just have like 3 major buyers, or sure, that 3 is even much, 2 major buyers that we sell mustard green to. Now, you realize that because we have just 2 major buyers, every time we are rounding up a cycle and we need to start, we always have to call these guys, what volume do you need now? Yes, we know there is a contract on ground, but what volume do you need? Okay, when do you need it? Should we do 10 plants or 20 plants? Should we do 100 plants or 200 plants? They're like, okay, do this number of plants. Okay, to be ready at so time. Well, are you sure? A week, a month to when it will be ready. We're already reminding them, this will soon be ready. It will soon be ready. Should we harvest? How do we harvest? What time do you want it harvested? And so on and so forth. Why? The number of buyers here are few. So when the number of buyers are few, their power is high. But when the number of buyers are many, their powers are diminished. But this number of buyers being many and power diminished also again is dependent on the size of each order from a buyer. I think I missed that up before. The size of each order from a buyer. So if there are 1,000 people buying tomatoes from you, but one of the customers is mopping up about 50, 60 or 80% of your volume, that one customer has more power than all the others combined. In short, if one customer buys 50% of your volume and your other 100 customers are buying the remaining 50%, he still has more power than them. Because when he is not available to buy that 50%, it means you are going to have an automatic surplus. I don't know if that makes sense. Then next, number 3 is your buyer's concentration. You need to know your buyer's concentration. Number 3. Buyer's concentration. Where are my buyers? Where do I have them highly concentrated? Where do they live? Where do they mainly work? Remember, we discussed customer profile. Where do they go? Where do I meet them? Where are they highly concentrated? I need to know. Because again, you see, this is where it is tricky. Where the buyers are highly concentrated, they have a power. Think about it. When the person comes to a place where everybody wants to buy pure water, we can be like, hey, no, we are not buying, or reduce your price. Can't you see how many we are? You want us to buy your sachet water? No. We are not paying 20 naira, we are paying 15. Why? We are many. If we are few, you have the power to say, no, this is how much I want to sell. But when we are many, as a businessman, you start looking at, there is high number. I can reduce my profitability and still be fine. So I was intending to sell at 400 per kilo. But I got into the place and I realized it was a crusade going on and everybody in the crusade ground wants to buy from me. And they are like, we are not buying except you said to us at 300. And maybe normally I was going to make 120 naira profit by selling at 400. You see, there is a high probability that because of the large volume of number, I will be willing to sell at 300 and make the 20 naira profit but sell more. Why? Because there is a power that can be wielded from being largely concentrated in an area. So when you have your market largely concentrated in an area, you want to be careful that you do not lose your power to them. So you do not come in looking desperate like, if this does not work, I am finished. Because when you come in looking desperate, they are able to use their buyer's concentration against you to get better deals for them that may not necessarily favor you. I don't know if that makes sense. So, buyer's concentration. Number 4 is buyer's ability to substitute. Ability to substitute. So you are selling a particular thing. Let's do for another example. So I'm not always using tomatoes. You are selling fish. Let's say catfish or tilapia fish. I think tilapia is more expensive. And the person comes and is like, I need tilapia fish, and you're like, no. This is my last price, and you're just there making out the whole business sales. And the person goes, if I don't even use tilapia, I can use catfish. So what is their ability to substitute? Is it easy for them to get a substitute for your product or service? If it is, they have the power. If not, you have the power. So that is why, if you remember in one of our classes where I talked about value, and I think in the next class we talked about 12 forms of value. You must ensure that you are not just about product or service sales and selling, but you are able to provide a value that gives something extra to what you are doing, so that the customer finds it hard to substitute you. If not, if they are able to substitute you, it means that your success or failure, they are not really committed to your success, or They are not bothered by your failure because there are substitutes they can easily buy from, so you are just an option. But if you are able to ensure that you have a value that you add, to ensure that they cannot easily find a substitute like you, then they are committed to your success. I hope that makes sense. Next is buyers switching costs. Switching costs, like we talked about in supplier's cost. Should we supply to you or not? Should we in a supplier's cost, it was should the supplier give you or give to B? Now the same thing, there is the buyer switching cost. Should they buy from me or buy from B? What are they losing that will cost them extra by buying from somebody else rather than buying from me? Are they having emotional turmoil? I'll give an example. I'll look for an example. So I have two mechanics that I can use, but there is one of them that is not so fluent in English. There is one that is fluent in English. Now, my choice on who to call part-time is because, okay, not too fluent, but at least I cannot communicate in English, is based on the fact that you can communicate in English. So my switching cost from, if I want to switch from the one that can communicate in English to the one that can't, is I must be ready to do a lot of sign language and all of that as a way to communicate. That is my switching cost. Remember, we said that switching cost is not always monetarily. It can just be something psychological, it can be mental, it can be time, it can be something else. So what is the switching cost? Because if I know what it will cost my customer to move from me to another person, it helps me ensure that the customer is aware of that, and because of that they are willing to stay. But if switching from me to another person reduces the switching cost from that person to me, then there is a likelihood that the customer would want to move on to the next person. So you want to ensure that the switching cost is always high on the customer to make them stay. I hope that makes sense. Next is buyers information availability. Buyers information availability. So there are people today who are running businesses, they have products, they have service, and they believe there is no market. That is because the info is not available. And for the buyers, most of the time, this is a power they wield. Because when you've had that product maybe 10 weeks, 10 months, 10 years, and you've not been able to sell it, and the day you now finally meet them, whatever price they see you is still an answer to your prayers. Whatever price they offer, you see it as a miracle. Why? You do not know where to get them. You do not have their info available, so you think this one that I have got is probably the only customer that buys this thing. E.g., I gave an example earlier of mustard green. At the moment, we do not have so many customers who are into mustard green because the mustard green we grow and the one most of them want was not the same. We had grown for the two that we knew. Now, imagine somebody comes tomorrow and says, that mustard green that you were growing before that nobody was taking, we need it. You see, it's only normal from human perspective that I start thinking, God has answered my prayers, and I ask how much. And the person gives me a ridiculous price, but because I have planted it, I do not have an option but to say I'll come and buy it, even if it is not being super profitable. I don't know if I'm making any sense. So when we talk about information availability of the buyer, is from the perspective of the seller now, the vendor. When you do not have this info, the one or two that you get becomes king, because you do not know that there are an array of such people willing to buy what you are doing. So you put them on a pedestal, you treat them like kings, and you give them so much power that they can now use against you. Then next is buyer's threat of backward integration. Buyer's threat of backward integration. So the buyer has been buying from you. They have been coming to you to buy these things. But now they have started opening their own farms. They have been coming to you to buy fish. Now they are starting up their own fish pond. This affects your bottom line. The buyer has been coming to you to buy pepper, to buy tomatoes. Now they are starting their own farm. It affects your own bottom line. That is a power they can also take away from you. Because by doing their backward integration, they are stopping the money, the profit that would have come from them is taken away from your pockets. Number 8 is industry forward integration. So there is the threat of backward integration. There is the threat of industry forward integration. Take for instance, let's say right now, I know there are times we take our tomatoes to places like My 12. Then we send to find some top stores and all of that to go and sell. And we hope that, oh, these people buy from us and we are all good and we are all fine. But what would happen if part of some of our farm colleagues decide to start owning their shops? Because when these farm colleagues decides to start owning their own shops, now we want to try to sell to them and they're like, no, we own our farms. We are just owning our shops now. It means that we have our market base has reduced. Yes, and everybody is thinking, but that will mean fewer suppliers. No, remember, they are still suppliers. They are still producers like us. But the market has reduced because the markets they are creating or the stores they are setting up are being set up as an outlet for their own products. I don't know if that makes any sense. And what that would simply mean is the market size will shrink. What I mean by that is this. Let me know if I'm going to explain that pictorially. So let's say there is SFL, there is another company called LLA, there's another one called AIL, and we have 100,000 people we sell to through, let's say, A, B, C, D, and E, D, C, B, A, that sells to these 100,000 people. This has been the norm. But when AIL decides to create their own store, what that would mean is if each of these was servicing 20,000 people before, AIL is going to take a part of this 100,000. Maybe they now own just 10,000 out of this 100,000. Now we are forced to now sell to 90,000. And there is still a probability that AIL will still want to sell to this through these other available platforms. So, and the more these people do forward integration as an industry, the more the market will sell to shrink. I don't know if that makes any sense. And remember, the more the market shrinks, the more the power of the buyers, because remember we said that when the volume is low, the number of buyers are low, then their power is what? High. So that can also be an issue. Then number 9, the final one, under buyer's power, is the price sensitivity of buyers. How sensitive are they to price? So there are people that are always looking for the bottom price of everything. So what is their price sensitivity? That is a huge one. What is their price sensitivity? These will play a huge role going forward. If there are people that are super sensitive to price, then the market or the seller this time around, the vendor, knows that they are on tight ropes, because any little thing they can just be like, nope, I'm gone, that guy is cheaper, I'm out. So what is the price sensitivity? So I hope we understood this class on buyers, bargaining power, the bargaining power of buyers. I say bargaining of power price, sorry. Bargaining power of buyers. So all of these things gives our buyers the power. In our next class, we'll be looking at threat of substitute product or services. The threat of substitute product or services. Remember, like I said, we are posting a lot of videos this week so that we have enough time to go through them for the rest of the month. So we'll be posting a lot of videos this week. So if you have any questions, please ask. So I will do videos to answer our questions specifically. Thank you.